Welcome everyone to the Implementation Projects Information Session for the Crozet Master Plan. I'm Michaela Cardi. I'm a senior planner with Albemarle County Community Development, and there's a few other staff here this evening from planning, transportation, and Parks and Rec. And you all can just introduce yourselves as you start speaking this evening. That'll be great. I will just get us started by talking about the purpose of tonight's webinar. We'll be sharing some overview information about projects that are recommended in the draft Crozet Master Plan, including descriptions and cost and timeline estimates. We'll be available to answer questions related to these projects, the engagement process to date for the master plan, as well as anything related to the content of the master plan. And we'll also conclude by sharing information about how to share your thoughts and feedback on prioritizing the recommended projects. And our agenda really reflects that purpose. Shortly, I will transition the presentation over to Rachel Falkenstein to talk about the planning process and master plans overall and the Crozet draft currently. And then we will highlight some of the recommended implementation projects based on those that are a bit more complex or we've heard a lot of interest in them throughout the process. We'll have time for questions and be available to answer relevant to the different county staff on the call. And then I'll wrap us up by talking about how to participate and prioritize projects online. All right, Rachel, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Michaela. As everyone said, I'm Rachel Falkenstein. I'm a planning manager working on the Crozet Master Plan project with the rest of the team. I am here to talk about a little bit of background on the project. For those of you who are new to this project and haven't had an opportunity to get involved yet, I wanted to share what we've done so far to develop the content that we're going to present to you tonight. So Michaela, if you can go to the next slide. So back in September of 2019, I'm sorry, I was getting ahead of myself. So really quickly, the purpose of a master plan is to help provide a vision for the community. So Albemarle County has several development areas where our growth management policy directs growth and development, especially residential and commercial growth to these development areas. And Crozet is one of those development areas. And each of our development areas has a master plan to establish a vision for that community. So we're in the process of updating the Crozet master plan right now. It was last developed or last update in 2010. And the purpose of the master plan is to provide some guidance for where new growth should occur within the community of Crozet. And it includes recommendations about uses for land within the Crozet community. So whether those properties should be residential, commercial, or mixed use, and then building form recommendations such as height and scale. The master plan also includes recommendations for transportation networks, parks, trails, and preservation areas. And then lastly, and this is our topic for this evening, are implementation recommendations that are used to guide public investments in the community in the future. And we use community input to inform the master plan content. So our next slide talks a little bit about the process we've done to date. The board in September 19 directed staff to work on the Crozet master plan update, and we developed a 4-phase process for this master plan update. And the first phase was really focused on visioning and identifying some of the high-level concerns and priorities of the community. And we looked at the guiding principles from the 2010 plan and drafted some updated guiding principles for our 3 plan chapters, using that as a base and community input to update those. And then our next phase, phase 2, was focused on specific topic areas where we started to hear topics that were of interest for the community and topics we know we needed to tackle in the master plan to address some of the challenges and goals that we've heard in that first phase, phase 1. And then the third phase, we call the draft recommendations phase. That's where we started to pull more content together. If you can go to the next slide, Michaela, phase 3. And refine some of the high-level strategies from phase 2. And that's where we began to start to pull some maps and concepts together on paper. We had a draft land use plan, developed a street network for our transportation chapter, developed a bike and pedestrian plan, and our parks and green systems plan. So we had all those drafts together at the end of phase 3. And then now we're in the last phase, phase 4, where we have draft chapters developed on the master plan. You can go to the next slide, Michaela. And we've incorporated all the feedback from the subsequent phases into these draft chapters. And we have 3 drafts already out for land use, transportation, and conservation. And we are working on 2 more chapters to add to those to have a full completed draft, hopefully next month, for the community to review and provide input. And then we're hoping for adoption in early fall, September or October. And so just quickly on some of the content that we have in the master plan so far, I mentioned that we will have 5 chapters. The first chapter will be an introduction chapter. We're drafting that right now and should have that draft out shortly for the community to review. We have 3 chapters: land use, transportation, and conservation. Those are kind of the body chapters of the master plan. And we've had drafts we've released to the community on each of these. And then lastly is the implementation chapter. And this is where we pull the content and the recommendations from our 3 body chapters together and work on identifying priorities and how we will implement the recommendations of each of those chapters. So I'll talk about just quickly content in each of these chapters so you can get a sense of what each chapter covers. The first is land use. You can go to the next slide. Our land use chapter includes an introduction, an overview and background of the topic, and then includes guiding principles, goals, and recommendations to support land use. There's a future land use plan, which is the map that identifies recommended uses for each property in Crozet. And then we have typologies to go along with that map. It explains what each of those colors means, what each of the recommendations on the properties means. Then we have some design guidance that talks about form recommendations to go along with the land use plan. We identify centers and districts. Those are areas with higher intensity of development that should help support future transit in Crozet. We talk about some other important areas that we've heard about throughout this master planning process. And then we have an appendix that will be at the end of the plan, but it will support the land use chapter. And that talks about some housing types. We've had a lot of discussion about a new land use category called middle density and some housing types to support that. So our land use guiding principle is to support and strengthen Crozet's history as a self-sustaining town while ensuring that new and infill development is compatible in scale and design and provides housing choice for all community members. Now I'll move on to our next chapter, which is the transportation chapter. This chapter has a similar format, but a little bit different content. It starts with the overview and background, and then it moves into the first map to support the transportation recommendations, and that's a bike and pedestrian network map that shows where existing and future sidewalks, bicycle lanes, and shared use paths should be located within Crozet. And then we have a street typologies map, similar concept. It shows all the existing streets and identifies street types, and then future streets within Crozet. And then we get into some detailed analysis about the transportation within Crozet, particularly vehicular transportation. We did a study to support this work, and we've identified some intersection improvements that can provide some relief for areas where there is current traffic issues identified in that study. And then at the end of the chapter, we have our guiding principles, goals, and recommendations. And then our transportation guiding principles on the next slide. And that is to create a multimodal transportation network that is safe and accessible for all community members, regardless of age, race, income, and ability. And then the last chapter that makes up the main body of the master plan is the conservation chapter. And that again starts with an overview and background and then gets into some maps. Our first is our parks and green systems plan, and that identifies existing parks and green systems, which are made up of floodplains, critical slopes, and stream buffers. And those are areas that are protected from development. And then we have a map that shows parks and trails, and then we have parks and trail types identified and standards for each of those. We also talk about some other county-owned properties that aren't currently or identified in the future for parks, but have other uses identified related to conservation, such as tree protection or stream buffer restoration. We have a section on biodiversity, natural resources, and green systems. We touch on cultural and scenic resources. And then at the end there, we have our guiding principles, goals, and recommendations. So I will end on our conservation guiding principle. Enhance Crozet's natural beauty, existing environmental resources in the surrounding rural areas with an integrated network of parks, gathering spaces, trails, and natural areas that offer increased opportunities for outdoor recreation and protect natural resources. And hopefully we can keep those guiding principles in mind as we talk about the implementation projects, and would love to hear feedback if you think we are achieving those guiding principles. So now I'm going to turn it over to Tori to talk about some specific projects we're recommending in the implementation section.
Great, thank you, Rachel, and good evening, everyone. My name is Tori Kenelopoulos. I'm a senior planner in the county's planning department. So I'm going to cover the types of implementation projects in the draft plan, a framework of how they're organized, and then we'll dive into some specific projects in more detail. Next slide, please. So we have three types of projects within the draft implementation chapter, and the first are planning project, which are detailed analyses, visioning, or design plans that are focused on a specific project or a specific area. And these allow for community engagement to create the types of guidelines and plans needed for future policy and capital projects. So then second, we have policy projects, which involve updates to the county's zoning ordinance and its development review processes. Third, we have capital projects, which are public amenities or infrastructure identified in the plan, including things like parks, trails, sidewalks, and transportation improvements. And these could be publicly funded through private development, or through a combination of both of those funding sources. And so if you're on the website and you're looking through the implementation projects packet and filling out the public input site, you'll notice that for each implementation project, there are cost estimates and a realization timeframe included. And so these cost estimates are general ranges and do not consider outside funding sources like state funding, federal funding, and grants that may reduce the project's overall cost for the county. So planning and policy projects all have a very similar cost estimate and realization timeframe range, while capital projects vary greatly and include the full range of cost estimates. Next slide, please. And so realization timeframes are the amount of time it will take for a project to be completed from start to finish when everything is in place for the project, such as funding and land acquisition. And so with these outside funding sources like state and federal funding programs and grants, that may affect a project's timeline, and also delays may occur if the county is not able to secure those types of funding sources, which happens frequently since they are very competitive programs. Next slide. And this is a list of all of the planning projects in the plan, and they all have a cost estimate of $1 and then a realization time frame of 1 to 2 years. And a lot of them are feasibility studies for future transportation and trail projects. Next slide. And this map shows all of the planning projects that were helpful to be shown on a map. Some of them we did not show specifically on the map since they apply toward the entire development area, such as a Crozet-wide transit plan. Next slide. So now we'll go ahead and dive into some of the specific projects for the planning portion of the implementation projects. And the first is a land use recommended project for the Downtown Neighborhoods Architectural and Cultural Resources Study. In 2009, there was the Crozet Architectural Resources Study, which recommended the area shown in white on the map be submitted for consideration for a National Historic District. And this area was accepted by the Federal National Register in 2012. However, there are several areas around downtown that also have important histories and structures that were not included. And that approximate area is outlined in red on the map and includes the Union Mission neighborhood to the east. And so the first phase of this planning project will determine the final downtown neighborhoods area, while the second phase will develop actionable strategies to allow appropriate infill and redevelopment in this area. Since we heard a lot of community feedback about the importance of having infill and redevelopment that's appropriate in scale and promotes preservation of this area. Next slide. And another recommended planning land use project is an old Crozet School community engagement opportunity. So the county owns 2 properties totaling approximately 8 acres along Crozet Avenue North across the street from Crozet Elementary School. And these properties are currently leased to 2 tenants, including the field school. And once the field school completes its planned move to another location, community input should be used to identify future uses for this site that support the goals of the overall master plan, which include housing, schooling needs, and natural resources. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Kevin to cover some of the transportation projects.
Thank you, Tori. My name is Kevin McDermott. I'm a planning manager here at Albemarle County, and I was focused on the transportation planning process associated with the Crozet master plan. As you all may know, we did undertake a transportation study of the entire Crozet area as part of this planning process. And as part of that, we assessed all of the roadway operations throughout the entire Crozet area, both now and into the future, to try and get a better idea as to how the network would operate. One of the things that we noted during that assessment was that a railroad crossing, a third railroad crossing in the area, or I'm sorry, a fourth railroad crossing in the area of downtown Crozet between Crozet Avenue and Park Ridge Avenue would relieve a lot of the transportation issues that were identified both in the downtown area and along Three Notch Road. The issue with that was that we weren't able to identify a specific location or if it was feasible to make a crossing. So this recommendation is looking at a feasibility study to identify where and if it's possible to make another railroad crossing between Crozet Avenue and Park Ridge. You can see the study doesn't cost a lot and it would take about a year to perform. Another study that we looked at was a Crozet Avenue shared use path. This has been a priority for a long time in Crozet. The issue is that we just don't know exactly what the alignment or the concept of that shared use path might be. So we would like to do a follow-up study to identify some conceptual cost estimates, design, and alignment of that shared use path. And finally, the Three Notch Trail feasibility study. This is a project that has gotten a lot of we've gotten a lot of feedback on recently. It was in the previous comprehensive plan to look at the feasibility of a 3-notch trail that would connect between the city of Charlottesville, Crozet, and ultimately all the way up to the Blue Ridge Tunnel. We are evaluating the possibility of performing that study now and would like to get feedback on what the community thinks of that.
Thank you, Kevin. So this is a list of all of the policy projects which are included in the plan. And like the planning projects, they all have a cost estimate of $1 sign and a 1 to 2 years realization time frame. And these projects are focused on zoning ordinance updates and improving development review processes. So I will cover one of the policy projects since we've heard a lot of feedback about the downtown area in Crozet. And this is a land use policy project to update the downtown Crozet zoning district, or the DCD. So the DCD district was first added to the county zoning ordinance in 2013. And most of the area on the future land use plan that's designated as downtown is zone DCD, including the square, and that's shown in purple on the map below. And since the DCD was first adopted, plans for the Crozet Square redevelopment have continued to evolve and move forward. And so the DCD requirements and uses that are allowed should be evaluated and updated to include appropriate design guidelines and reflect the market demands of the area. Next slide, please. And so we have 2 sections of capital projects, and the first are capital projects that are greater than $3 million for their cost estimate. And these are mainly major transportation improvements, especially intersection improvements. Next slide. And this list is all of those remaining capital projects that are less than $3 million. And they include a variety of transportation and conservation projects, including trail upgrades and stream restoration projects, and then one land use project for downtown wayfinding signage. Next slide, please. And so this is a map that shows all of the mappable capital projects, both above and below $3 million. Some of the symbols are shown twice on the map where a project would involve two locations. For example, on Route 250, 1B is shown twice since that is one transportation project, but does involve two intersections. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Kevin to cover some of these projects in more detail.
Thanks again, Tori. As Tori mentioned, the first project on our list are the Route 250 roundabouts. These were two priority recommendations from the transportation analysis that was done. They identified some solutions for some of the most serious transportation problems that we have in the Crozet area, which are right along Route 250, primarily at the Old Trail intersection with 250 and where Henley and Brownsville meet 250, as well as Crozet Avenue and Route 250. So these two projects, Project 1A and 1B, are looking at the improvements in that segment of Route 250. Eastern Avenue is a project that has been on our priority list for a long time, and it is currently being evaluated through an alignment and conceptual design, but we have not secured the full funding for that. So that's why we have it back on this, and we are seeking to identify that funding through state and local sources right now. The downtown intersection improvements were really looking at a series of intersections along Crozet Avenue right in the downtown area, and the best way to address all the congestion problems that we see through that area. The ultimate recommendation for that was what we termed the quadrant intersection. And you can go to the next slide that shows an example of, or shows a concept of what this would look like. And you can see that this has a roundabout where Library Avenue connects with Crozet Avenue. And the solution for this intersection also involved restricting left turns at Jarman's Gap and focusing all of those movements up to that roundabout. So you would no longer be able to make a left off of Jarman's Gap onto Crozet Avenue. You would have to go up to the roundabout. And also you couldn't make a left onto Jarman's Gap from Crozet Avenue. Once again, you'd go through the roundabout. Another project that was identified is the Afton Express stop. We recently received funding for a new park and ride lot located at US 250 and I-64, just on the south side of that interchange. And we are in the process of getting started the Afton Express regional bus line, which would connect the city of Charlottesville along I-64 and over Afton Mountain to Waynesboro and Stanton. This proposal that we have here is to add another stop to that Afton Express, which is being run by Bright Transit out of the Valley, Shenandoah Valley, to have that stop at this new park and ride that is going to be constructed, both on its way into Charlottesville and its way back in the afternoons over to Stanton and Waynesboro. The three-notched road shared use path, we heard a lot of feedback from the community on. This would propose to build a shared use path on the south side of three-notched road, all the way from the Wickham Pond neighborhood to the employment district where Star Hill and Music Today are. And we have broken this up into two different segments. Phase 1 and Phase 2. Phase 1 would make the connection from those residential neighborhoods in the east to Park Ridge Avenue. And Park Ridge Avenue, of course, provides access all the way downtown. And then the Phase 2 of that project would connect it from Park Ridge Avenue out to that employment district where Star Hill and Music Today are located. Priority sidewalk connections are really focused on a lot of different segments of the sidewalk network throughout the downtown area. We've selected a few of these that are highlighted in the slide, as like Crozet Avenue from Tabor Street to Dunvegan, Tabor Street to Hilltop, and along High Street, Park Road, and another segment of Hilltop Street from High Street to Indigo. We separated, they're shown on this map here where you can see, and we've broken those up into individual projects because doing them all at once probably isn't feasible. So we'd like to get feedback on some of these priorities as well. And the Bike Route 76 signage, this is really to try and capture some of the traffic that Bike Route 76, the national cross-country bike route, gets and direct them into downtown. Currently, it passes to the west and north of downtown Crozet, and we would like to start getting them to move into the city and focus some of that funding that we can get to for signage into the Crozet area.
Yeah, and I'm Tim Patalino. I'm the Chief of Parks Planning in the Parks and Recreation Department. And I've also been participating on the staff side of this master plan update process. And just going to provide some high-level information about some of the implementation projects relating to the conservation chapter. Western Park is envisioned as a 3-phase implementation project, about a $5.5 to $6 million project. Currently, the county is actually focusing on implementing phase 1A, which is a sub-phase, and that's because the Board of Supervisors recently authorized the use of the cash proffer funds from Old Trail to begin implementing phase 1A. So as you can see from this very conceptual rendering on the screen, this phase will include a playground with equipment for 2 to 5-year-olds and 5 to 12-year-olds as well. Includes swings and that nice new unitary surface material, as well as 2 shade shelters, each with a concrete pad and a picnic table, and site furnishings like benches and waste receptacles and dog waste station, hand sanitizer station, a bicycle rack, and some signage. The next slide shows the overall park master plan. But again, phase 1A would be a small chunk of that, and the majority of park development would be in the future. Another conservation implementation recommendation is the Licking Hole Creek Greenway Trail. This is envisioned as a primitive greenway trail, following Licking Hole Creek for most of the way, perhaps Slabtown Branch for part of the way, between Western Park and Licking Hole Creek Basin. Portions of this trail are already in place under publicly accessible greenway easements being mowed and maintained with signage by the Crozet Trails crew and the Parks and Recreation Trails crew. Other segments are yet to be obtained, or the easements have yet to be acquired. So this is sort of a partially implemented project, but completing this connection across the entire development area is a recommendation. Somewhat similar is the Crozet Connector Trail. This is envisioned as a paved shared use path. And as I think everybody knows, this is partially in place as well as more of a primitive trail with a crushed stone or gravel surface. Parks and Recreation, along with community development and others, are continuing to work with developers at Glenbrook and other private property owners to complete that segment, at least at a primitive greenway trail level of surface material. And then the future plan and future recommendation would be to upgrade that to a paved shared use path between downtown and West Hall, and really be like a primary corridor for multimodal connection between downtown, neighborhoods, parks, and other destinations throughout Crozet.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you everyone for sharing all of those project examples. It's nice to hear everything in summary and see how everything relates and connects to just different aspects of the overall plan's vision. Now we're moving into an opportunity for questions and answers. And as a reminder, this is intended to be an information session about the different projects that are currently recommended in the plan. And then there is an online questionnaire where we invite you to prioritize the projects by the categories that Tori discussed: planning, policy, and capital, in the 2 different cost estimate buckets as well. And I'll go over, provide a demo and talk about how to do that at the end of the meeting, but we do have time for questions. So to do that, to participate, please use the raise hand feature. There's a button on the center of your screen, and that will indicate to us that you'd like to speak. And if you keep the button on, a queue is automatically created, so we can keep an eye on that order. And please note that the Q&A box and the chat box are turned off, so please use that raise hand feature. And we're here for any questions or comments about the recommended projects. And I see that Barb has her hand raised, so if Carolyn, you can unmute Barb and you can go ahead.
Okay, go right ahead, Barb.
Hi, is there any discussion of continuing some sort of trail sidewalk connection? I saw it going from one end of Highlands into town, but crossing in front of Highlands and going out to Beaver Creek Park, or at least to the road that leads to Beaver Creek Park on 240.
I can take that question if you'd like.
Thanks, Kevin.
So at this time, that is not one of the recommendations that was in the plan. We do have a shared roadway that we recommended to go out that direction, a rural shared roadway, so that we could improve the roadway so bicyclists would be able to go out along Route 240 towards Beaver Creek. But there was no pedestrian connection that was recommended in there. The pedestrian connection essentially ends at Wickham Pond there.
What can we do to try to move that forward?
I think we will have a comment. We'll be accepting comments on this plan, and we would be happy to look into the possibility if you make that comment.
Thank you.
Thank you both. I will pull up our participant list again. It doesn't look like we have any hands raised. So I'll give it another few minutes and we'll keep an eye on our participant list. And I can also walk through the online form as well. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about how to participate online and share your feedback. So this, again, there is a publicinput.com site that is the engagement hub for online engagement hub for this project. And so if you click on or visit publicinput.com/imagine Crozet, I'm switching over screens really quick, so apologies for the back and forth. It brings you to this website that has some background information on the project, and you can see the engagement process to date, as well as some previous online questionnaires. The phase 4 prioritizing Crozet implementation projects at the top is the questionnaire that's currently live. And when you click on participate, you're brought to a questionnaire that has an overview page and an introduction section. And that really was what we talked about this evening. So you're probably well equipped to just go ahead and get started on the form itself. And there are separate tabs for each category of projects. And for example, the planning projects, we have the map here that we shared in the presentation showing the location of some of the different planning projects that apply to a specific area. There is a PDF viewer that provides some more detailed descriptions, cost estimates, images, and time frames for the different projects. And then at the bottom, there's a question about asking you to rank your highest priority, and you just click and drag. For example, if your top priority was a railroad crossing feasibility study, you could drag that to first, and then subsequently pick which projects are most important from the perspective of achieving the plan's vision. So, and again, if you want to move things back below or change your mind, that's all possible. We just ask that you rank all of the options so that we get accurate results on this questionnaire. So you'll be asked to rank all of them before you can submit your answer to that question. And then each tab follows that order of content where there is a PDF with images and descriptions, and then you can again drag and rank the different projects in order of priority. The last tab, the capital projects, is the longest because the capital projects they are the greatest number of recommendations, and they're broken into two categories: greater than $3 million in cost and less than $3 million in cost. So two separate questions based on cost, and again, drag and drop based on how highly you wish to prioritize a project. You can move around the order until you're comfortable with what you're submitting. And I'll highlight that there is an additional question on this tab about priority sidewalk segments. Again, Kevin mentioned during the presentation that we've heard a lot about downtown sidewalk filling in different segments of this network or constructing incomplete areas of the sidewalk network as being really important. So there's a list of different segments. Since it's not as feasible to do it all at once, we'd love your feedback on which segments are most important. And then as an optional portion of this form, we're asking for you to answer some questions about who you are and demographics so we can get an idea of who we're hearing from on this online form. And quickly, I'll just share that we've already had about 29 people participate, and we have a live dynamic report showing how people are ranking the different projects. And definitely encourage your neighbors and people you know in Crozet to fill out this form. We'll be posting this video on the public input site so that others who weren't able to attend this evening can go online, watch this, and have all of the information they need to participate. And one more aspect of this that's happening this week is we're going to be out in Crozet for some community pop-ups tomorrow. We'll be with the Albemarle County Mobile Engagement Office. It's a large van that says Albemarle, Let's Talk Albemarle in big graphic letters on the side. So you probably won't be able to miss us at Crozet Library from 3 to 4:30 and Crozet Park from 4:30 to 6. So we hope to catch some people that weren't able to attend this evening or maybe haven't been involved as much in this process so far and invite them to participate. And that is all we have as part of our formal presentation this evening, but we certainly have time for any additional questions. We intended to be here till 8, so we have some time, and we can accommodate any additional questions or comments. Well, I'll just say thanks from everybody on this call at Admiral County that we appreciate you taking time out of your Tuesday evening to listen to this presentation and learn about how to participate. And please help us spread the word. Maybe we'll see you tomorrow at Crozet Library or Crozet Park.
All right, bye, everybody. I'm going to stop recording now.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Okay.